In a career that spanned nearly 7 decades, Marshall Fredericks created monuments to people, to ideas, and to humanity. He was a public artist. Many of his works are intended for public spaces, to bring people together for a moment of contemplation, remembrance, beauty, or joy. Marshall Maynard Fredericks was born in 1908 and spent his earliest years in the Scandinavian community of Rock Island, Illinois, on the banks of the Mississippi River. The youngest of 4 children, he showed a creative spark at an early age, carving blocks of soap and later working with natural clay and soft wood. Frederick's father, Frank Arthur Fredericks, briefly moved the family to Florida before settling in Cleveland to work as a construction engineer. As a teenager, Fredericks would sometimes join his father on work sites, learning about construction techniques and building materials, skills that he would one day use for his own monumental creations. Fredericks attended the Cleveland School of Art, where he gravitated towards sculpture. He kept a scrapbook with articles and photos about famous sculptors, and it was soon filled with the work of Swedish artist Carl Milles. Fredericks excelled in art school and earned a scholarship to fund additional studies in Europe. He could have attended any art school, but the decision for him was a simple one. He wanted to study with the sculptor who had inspired him, Carl Milles. Within a week of his graduation, Fredericks boarded a ship for Scandinavia on his way to the Royal Academy in Stockholm. When he arrived in Stockholm, Fredericks was surprised to learn that Milles had left the Royal Academy 5 years earlier to focus all of his attention on creating art. Fredericks was able to get in touch with Milles, who invited the disappointed American to his home studio. Fredericks was awestruck to finally see Milles in his studio. Milles appreciated Fredericks' talent and enthusiasm and offered him a position as a stone carver in his studio. After working with Milles for some time, Fredericks decided to resume his travels. He made his way through Europe, enjoying museums and public art. After studying in Munich and Paris, he returned to the United States just as it was plunging into the Great Depression and where there were few opportunities for work, especially for artists. Like many Americans, Fredericks tried to eke out a living, doing odd jobs wherever he could find them, but was soon surprised with an offer from his Swedish mentor. Milles had relocated to the United States to work at the Cranbrook Academy of Art, a school founded by George Booth, the owner of Booth Newspapers. Milles was to be an art instructor and artist in residence at the school, and he needed help. It was a remarkable opportunity, and Fredericks jumped at the chance to work alongside Milles. Starting in 1932, Fredericks assisted Milles at Cranbrook, but also began to teach and create his own works, which can still be found throughout the Bloomfield Hills campus. Four years after arriving at Cranbrook, Fredericks' career path changed nearly overnight. He entered a national design competition for the Levi Barber Memorial on Detroit's Belle Isle Park. With the Great Depression still looming, commissions for artists were scarce, and the competition attracted artists from around the country. The award and commission went to the little-known instructor from Cranbrook for his striking fountain design of a leaping gazelle. More commissions followed. His light-hearted fountain design of baboons was selected for the 1939 World's Fair, bringing him even greater exposure. His reputation was growing, and so was his success. But the outbreak of World War II put his plans on hold. Within days of the attack on Pearl Harbor in December of 1941, Fredericks volunteered for the Army, even though he was too old to be drafted. As he prepared for deployment, Fredericks met Rosalind Bell Cook on an Army base in Arizona where she was volunteering as a driver. The two were married before he left the country, and she delivered twin boys while he was stationed in India, Christopher and Carl, in honor of his longtime mentor and friend, Carl Millis. Fredericks served with the 20th Bombing Squad in the India-Burma Theater and rose to the rank of lieutenant colonel, serving honorably, but struggling to reconcile his religious and humanist beliefs with the violent conflict. Fredericks returned to a country that was both grieving its losses and rebuilding itself. The public was looking for ways to honor the memory of those who had served. Fredericks was himself deeply affected by the war, and in search of ways to apply his talents to help the world heal. Before he even returned home, Fredericks was offered a commission to create a war memorial in downtown Cleveland. It was the first of many war memorial commissions. Because of its scale and complexity, it would take 19 years to complete. Fredericks poured his soul into the Cleveland Monument, and the design went through numerous revisions before settling on its now iconic form, which shows the human spirit rising above the flames of war and destruction and toward eternal life. Fredericks hoped the work would bring peace to the many who lost loved ones in the war. 4 10-ton granite blocks depict legends and mythologies from cultures around the world: Nordic, Eastern, Southern, and Western. From each culture, he included symbols reflecting eternal life, an everlasting spirit, and a higher power. In the center, a figure soars 43 feet above the granite basin, rising above a filigreed bronze sphere representing the universe. It was dedicated on Memorial Day in 1964. Even before the war, Fredericks had started to capture the attention of architects. In Fredericks, they saw a partner who could bring artistic vision, enhancing their designs and creating iconic spaces. In his first collaboration in 1939, he partnered with Harley Ellington and Day on the Horace H. Rackham Educational Memorial in Detroit. He went on to work with leading architects including Alden B. Dow and established a reputation as a public artist. Nearly 20 years later, he was once again approached by Harley Ellington and Day to create a new work at the center of Detroit, the new Detroit City County building at the heart of Detroit's Civic Center. It would become one of the most celebrated architectural collaborations of his career. Fredericks set out to create a symbol that captured the essence of the booming city, once again experimenting with many visual ideas. The final idea includes a central figure that is 5 times larger than life, representing the city itself. In one hand, it holds a gilt bronze sphere representing the creator, and in the other hand, a family, which Fredericks saw as the fundamental building block of society. Cast in Norway, the statue was shipped through the St. Lawrence Seaway and dedicated in a ceremony on September 23, 1958, that attracted thousands. The monument has become a beloved icon of the city and a focal point for civic pride. Fredericks' monumental works often reflected his faith. So when he was approached by Father Charles Brophy, a priest at the Indian River Shrine, to create a crucifix for the new chapel designed by Alden B. Dow, he jumped at the opportunity. As he visited the wooded site in Indian River, Michigan, he felt that a figure of Christ at human scale would be overlooked when set against a backdrop of towering pines. So he suggested something much larger. As Fredericks set to work designing the sculpture, he had ideas about how to depict the Christ figure, which is traditionally shown in great suffering. Fredericks depicted a more peaceful figure, with a calm face, no wound in his side or crown of thorns. Legend has it that the design sparked a theological discussion that went all the way to the Vatican. Citing examples of non-suffering Christ figures from the Middle Ages, they approved the design. Fredericks worked from a studio in New York, where he had more space. The casting was done in Norway and shipped almost in one piece, though the arms were welded to the torso during installation in August of 1959. For decades, the cross in the woods has been a serene place for contemplation and meditation. Fredericks was prolific. Working 6 days a week, he produced thousands of works of art, which can be found around the world in parks and gardens, government embassies and royal palaces, museums and zoos, universities, hospitals, businesses, and libraries. It was challenging work, physically and mentally, but Fredericks continued to create a wide range of works, from small medallions to large monuments, with subject matter ranging from whimsical to spiritual to commemorative. Fredericks' work as an artist brought notoriety around the world, from American mayors, governors, and presidents to European kings and queens. Fredericks was knighted in Denmark, Sweden, and Norway, and served as Royal Danish Consul in Michigan for 3 decades. When he wasn't in his studio, he was often participating in philanthropic efforts. He partnered with the Lord Mayor of Copenhagen to create an exchange program for young adults with disabilities in the US and Denmark, which included providing trained leader dogs for blind people in Denmark. By the mid-1980s, Fredericks had amassed a huge collection of plaster molds, drawings, photographs, tools, and memorabilia. A former Kingswood School student at Cranbrook, Dorothy Doan Arbery, better known as Honey, led the effort to create a permanent home for Fredericks' work. As a member of the Board of Control at Saginaw Valley College, now known as Saginaw Valley State University, she built enthusiastic support to make the gallery a reality. The original building, reminiscent of the designs of Eliel Saarinen at Cranbrook, was dedicated in 1988. Following Fredericks' death in 1998, the museum was expanded to make room for the sculpture studio, archives, temporary exhibition galleries, and a classroom. And in 2014, the Joanne and Donald Peterson Sculpture Garden was added. Even in his 80s, Fredericks remained prolific, seeing ideas through to completion that he had envisioned decades earlier. At age 87, he was asked to finish a piece that was originated by Carl Milles, but never completed. Close friends urged Fredericks not to accept the commission, but Fredericks was driven by love and respect for his longtime mentor and friend. In a return to the city where his career had started decades earlier, Fredericks helped complete the iconic fountain God on the Rainbow, which now greets travelers in Stockholm Harbor. Fredericks completed his final work, Lord Byron, at age 90. It was a piece he had designed 60 years earlier. 3 days after completing the work, he passed away.
There are several things concerning sculpture that I believe are extremely important. It must be wholly consistent and in harmony with the architecture involved. as well as being a beautiful entity within itself. It must embody a significance suitable to and expressive of the purpose and setting. And finally, it must have a constructive meaning for others. I love people, for I've learned through many experiences, both happy and sad, how beautiful and wonderful they can be. Therefore, I want more than anything in the world to do sculpture which will have real meaning for other people, many people, and might in some way encourage, inspire, or give them happiness.